Hello everyone and welcome back to a brand new Pokemon TCG video. Today we're going to take a look at arguably one of the worst of the Roaring Skies EX Pokemon that came out with the set, and that is the Thundurus EX. Now let me give you guys some reasons as to why it's just a very underwhelming Pokemon. I mean, a Headlock only allows us to hit for a potential 60 damage. We can also potentially paralyze our opponent's active Pokemon, but it's not really all that great of an attack. We're not really going to be using it a whole lot. What we'd like to focus on instead, guys, is the Voltage Rush attack. What I really dislike about it is that it requires a total of 3 Lightning Energy cards for us to be able to attack with the Thundurus EX. So that's almost always going to take us a total of 3 turns to load up, unless of course we have some sort of energy acceleration mechanism, which we do in our deck. But also the other downside to it is that whenever we do use the Voltage Rush attack, our own Thundurus EX hits himself for 50 damage, so that's pretty awful. It does hit, however, our opponent's active Pokemon for 150 damage, so it can be sort of a feasible attack. So what we've done to try and increase the total damage output of the Thundurus EX and hopefully allow us to get those one-hit knockouts is that we are running a total of 3 copies of the Muscle Band in combination with, of course, the Thundurus EX. So that's going to increase the total damage output to a total of 170 damage, so that's kind of nice. Again, it's still lacking the ability to knock out certain EX Pokemon that have a total of 180 HP, and that's really where the Hypnotoxic lasers come in handy. We are running 4 copies of it, and that's pretty much going to allow us to knock out the vast majority of EX Pokemon that we will be encountering, with the main exceptions being a Pokemon that have lightning resistance, the Wailord EX, of course, with a massive 250 HP, and most of the Mega EX Pokemon. But aside from that, the Thundurus EX should be able to knock out the vast majority of other Pokemon that we do face with a single attack, so that can be kind of nice. The energy acceleration mechanism that I've decided to include in our deck, guys, is going to be through the usage of the Electric with the Dynamotor ability. This will allow us to repeatedly retrieve any discarded Lightning Energy cards from our discard pile and then attach them to one of our bench Pokemon. The keyword being that it only does so to one of our bench Pokemon. So so that means that, for example, if we happen to have an active Thundurus EX as our if we happen to have a Thundurus EX as our active Pokemon, the Electric can't simply attach a Lightning Energy card from the discard pile onto him, so it would have to be a bench Pokemon. However, when we do include 2 copies of the Electros as well, that's when we have the Energy Connect ability, and this will allow us to move a basic energy card from one of our bench Pokemon to one of our active Pokemon. So that's when it doesn't really matter if we happen to have a whole lot of Electrics on the bench, and the fact that, of course, their special ability is only restricted to bench Pokemon. That's because the Electros sort of circumnavigates around that, and Energy Connect allows us to move those Lightning Energy cards to one of our active Pokemon. So that's pretty cool. We are running 2 copies of the Electros, just a very nice and useful Pokemon in this type of deck. It can also be used for its Electric Cannon attack to allow us to knock out any safeguard Pokemon that we may encounter. So Electros is a very solid addition in this deck. We are running 2 copies of it. And I also briefly want to talk about the Dynamo, guys. We are running the one that has a total of 40 HP. We're going to be running the one from the Primal Clash set. There's also a couple of other Dynamos as well, but they only have 30 HP. Very easy to get knocked out by Pokemon such as the Landorus EX. Absolutely something that we don't want, so I'd highly recommend running the 40 HP Dynamo. And just in case, of course, that's not enough, we're also running a single copy of the Mr. Mime with the Bench Barrier ability, preventing all bench damage to any of our Pokemon. So Mr. Mime can be another very useful Pokemon. We are running a single copy of him. The very last Pokemon in our deck, guys, is the Raikou EX. Mainly we're using it for its Volt Bolt attack. This will allow us to snipe any of our opponent's bench Pokemon in case we need to. I mean, Raikou EX is ideal and not a Pokemon that we'd really like to bring out. Of course, unless we have a very troubling sort of bench Pokemon that our opponent happens to have that we'd like to knock out. Raikou EX can be a very useful Pokemon in those types of situations, so we are running a single copy of him. Now we're trying to get some Lightning Energy cards into the discard pile. As you guys can see, we're running 12 Lightning Energy cards. Not a whole lot, but again, with all of the recycling mechanisms of the Electric and the Electros' ability to move around those Lightning Energy cards, 12 Lightning Energy cards should be more than enough for the most part. We're running a total of 2 copies of the Battle Compressor, guys. This will ideally allow us to get those Lightning Energy cards into the discard pile, so then the Electrics can go right ahead and use the Dynamotor ability, grab them out, and then latch them onto any of our bench Pokemon. So Battle Compressor should be another very useful card. We are running 2 copies of it. Our A-Spec card is going to be the Dowsing Machine. I feel like we have a lot of useful item cards that we'd like to be able to reuse. of course, supporter cards as well that can really come in handy, and maybe even our stadium card as well. So I decided to go with the dowsing machine. Haven't really thoroughly tested this deck. In fact, I've only used it a single time, but I've decided to stick with the dowsing machine. If you guys disagree with me, please feel free to scrap it out and instead use the computer search. We are running a single copy of the Starling Megaphone just to allow us to deal with mainly Garbodor types of Pokemon. Could also be nice just to allow us to get rid of any tool types of attachments to any of our opponent's Pokemon as well. So Starling Megaphone is pretty useful. We are running a single copy of it. The other cards in our deck, guys, are pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to be going through them relatively quickly. We're running a single copy of the Switch just to allow us to switch in between our Pokemon. 4 Ultra Balls allowing us to grab any of the Pokemon that we need. 3 VS Seekers to allow us to make use of all of our supporter cards all over again. A single Colorist for Ends and for Junipers for some draw support. 1 Lysander to lure out any of our opponent's bench Pokemon. Teammates card can be another very useful card. And yeah, so that is pretty much it, guys. I'm gonna go and now find ourselves an opponent. Again, I haven't really thoroughly tested this deck. I've only used it in a single battle, so there's probably still a lot of tweaking here and there that we could do to improve the deck's overall viability and just make it a little bit better. But for the time being, I think this should be a pretty good deck for the most part, guys. And yeah, so we're just gonna wait and find ourselves an opponent. I was also initially thinking of running the Team Plasma Thundurus EX as well to try and retrieve those lightning energy cards. However, upon closer inspection of the card, it only allows us to attach any discarded energy cards to one of our bench Pokemon, provided that they are a Team Plasma Pokemon. So unfortunately, there was no space for it in our deck. Looks like the opponent is going to go first. I'm not really sure what type of deck we are going to be encountering. Looks like we're going to start off with a Dynamo. Not exactly the greatest start. I hope we don't get a one-hit knockout right away. It looks like the opponent is going to be running a Night March sort of deck, so I'm really hoping that we're able to draw onto some sort of draw supporter card, guys. The opponent is going to bring out the Joltik, some energy cards. Awesome, we're seeing an N. Again, nothing all that useful, but I'm going to go and use the N during our turn as well. The opponent hasn't gotten any one of his Night March Pokemon into the discard pile just yet. We are seeing a Pumpkaboo go into the discard pile though, and a Grass energy card. Probably going to see a Mew EX, I'm guessing, onto the opponent's bench, but I'm not entirely sure what our opponent's main sort of Night March strategy could be. I've actually been seeing an increase. Alright, so we are seeing the Celebi EX. Yeah, so I've actually been seeing an increase in the number of, forgot Pumpkaboo's evolution's name right off the top of my head. Sorry guys, I can't. Yeah, sorry, I just forgot it. You know what, I'm gonna go and use the N, guys, to get some new cards in our hand. Hopefully something useful. Awesome, looks like we have a Thundurus EX. I'm gonna go and attach, let me see, Water Splash. We could hit our opponent for 20 damage. I don't think that's going to be all that feasible. Let's go and attach that to our Thundurus EX and then unfortunately end the turn. We'll definitely be able to get rid of our opponent's Joltik during the next turn. But the Pumpkaboo, I can't, what's it called? I'm really racking my brain trying to remember, guys, but yeah, I'm sorry, I just can't do it right now. Alright, so the opponent is using the Battle Compressor, probably going to get a couple more Night March Pokemon into his deck, probably going to be some Lampent, I'm guessing. Yeah, so that Celebi EX is definitely in use to bring out that 200 HP Night March Pokemon. So that can be quite troubling, especially given the fact that we're not running any Lysander's trump cards, guys. So we're definitely going to have to try and overpower our opponent. Alright, so maybe our opponent is not planning on evolving his Pumpkaboo. So it looks like I may have been wrong, but I do see the Grass Energy card, so I'm not entirely sure what that is all about. Let's go and bring out the Thundurus EX as our active Pokemon. I'm going to go and attach a Lightning Energy card to him. I think I'd rather use the N as opposed to the Juniper, but then again, that could also help out our opponent. You know what, let's go and use the Juniper. I'm going to go and bring out the Rough Seas, use the Juniper for some new cards in our hand. Let's go and bring out another Thundurus EX, and my goodness, we don't have a single one of our Dynamos in our bench just yet, so it looks like our setup is going a little bit slower than expected, but let's go and use the Headlock attack. Definitely going to knock out our opponent's Joltik regardless of the flip, and then we're going to go and draw onto one of our prize cards. Okay, so another Thundurus EX. I feel like Juniper would be a pretty wise card to use during our next turn. It's going to simultaneously get some of our Lightning Energy cards into the discard pile, and hopefully will allow us to draw onto something a little bit more useful. Awesome, looks like we've finally been able to draw onto one of our Ultra Balls. I'm going to go and use it to get rid of... you know what, we're gonna be able to win anyways, so let's go and find ourselves another opponent, guys. Use that Voltage Rush, knock out our opponent's Celebi EX, and find ourselves another opponent. So definitely not a sort of Night March game that I was expecting. I mean, Night March decks are usually very, very speedy, so I'm actually quite surprised at how easily we were able to overcome our opponent's deck. I'm going to go and find ourselves another opponent, guys. And alright, so this time we're going to be facing a Fairy and Psychic type deck. Alright, so this should be an interesting battle. Can't off the top of my head guess what it is, but I'm going to go and say that it's probably going to be a Mega Gardevoir EX and a Mega Gardevoir EX deck, and the Psychic Pokemon is probably going to be Mewtwo EX. Again, I'm not really sure. It's just based on the opponent's deck layout. Alright, so let's go and start off with the Thundurus EX as our active Pokemon, and then I'm going to go and lay down a Dynamo onto our bench. And okay, so let's see what type of Pokemon our opponent's active is going to be. Okay, so it looks like it is going to be the Mewtwo EX. So it should be relatively easy for us to knock out. I mean, with the Voltage Rush and a Muscle Band, we're able to hit that magic 170 damage. So, provided, of course, that we can latch on those Lightning Energy cards onto the Thundurus EX fast enough, we should be able to get relatively easy knockouts. And alright, looks like the opponent is going to use the N. I think that's actually going to be quite useful for us. I'm not really sure if I'd like to attach a Lightning Energy card to the Thundurus EX, just because, of course, that's going to increase the total damage output of our opponent's Mewtwo EX. So you know what, for the time being, I'm going to go and use the Battle Compressor to get rid of a couple of Lightning Energy cards and then put those into the discard pile. And then I'm going to go and use the N. I don't want to get rid of our opponent's Fairy Garden just yet, because I'm sure he's running probably a total of 4 copies, so I'd like to make use of those Rough Sea Stadium cards. Let's go and use that N for some new cards. And alright, let's go and use that Hypnotoxic Laser on the opponent's Mewtwo EX. I'm going to go and attach a Lightning Energy card to our Thundurus EX as well. You know what, let's go and bring out the Rough Seas just to prevent our opponent's Mewtwo EX from being able to retreat, and then unfortunately we have to go and end the turn. Looks like that Mewtwo EX is going to wake up. I would love to see the opponent use an N or something, or at least for us to be able to draw onto another draw supporter card as well, guys. Nothing particularly useful in our hand, and we definitely won't be able to attack if we don't get another energy card during the next turn. So not exactly the best start for us, but I don't think it's the best start for our opponent either. Only has a Mewtwo EX. I haven't seen any of these Spritzees come out just yet, so he's not going to have that energy manipulation possibly until later on in the game. And okay, so we're just waiting to see what the opponent does. Another Fairy Garden is going to come out. Is that Mewtwo EX going to retreat? I'm not entirely sure. We are seeing a Skyla. Not really sure what our opponent's going to grab with the Skyla. I'm thinking it's probably going to be some sort of draw supporter card. Okay, so it looks like it's going to be the Pokemon Fan Club. It's probably going to use it to grab onto a Gardevoir EX and a Spritzee, or probably a Spritzee and the Xerneas. Awesome, looks like we've just been able to draw onto the VS Seeker. Let's go and attach that Muscle Band onto the Thundurus EX, guys. Use that VS Seeker and use that N one more time. Hopefully we get something a little bit better this time around. And okay, so we have a Electrike, so that's kind of cool, but no other bench Pokemon just yet, guys. I'm gonna go and attach another Lightning Energy card to the Thundurus EX, really hoping that we get the Headlock and we flip a tail so that our opponent's active Pokemon is paralyzed. Let's go and use that Hypnotoxic Laser as well, just for some extra assurance. And it looks like we are going to flip the tail, so I'm gonna go and use Battle Compressor, get a couple more Lightning Energy cards into the discard pile, guys. I think 2 should be enough. I don't want to get too many into the discard pile. Let's go and use that Dynamotor and attach a Lightning Energy card to the Electric. And then, yeah, so let's go right ahead, use that Headlock, hope for the tails, and it looks like we're going to get the heads, unfortunately. I mean, we are hitting our opponent's Mewtwo EX for 80 damage, so that's kind of cool, but again, I would have liked to been able to hit our opponent for a little bit more damage than that, but that's okay. I'm thinking I'm probably going to use the N during our next turn as opposed to the teammates card, just to lower the number of cards in our opponent's hand, and of course get some additional cards in our hand as well. Of course, provided that our opponent's Mewtwo EX does happen to knock out our Thundurus EX. Alright, so it looks like we're seeing an N. The opponent is going to use that VS Seeker to grab onto the N, so we're already going to get our hand shuffled. And awesome, so another Dynamo, another Electrike as well, and the Ultra Ball, so that's kind of cool. We should hopefully be able to attack. But, alright, so Thundurus EX is of course going to get knocked out. I'm going to go and bring out the Electric as our active Pokemon. We are seeing another Mewtwo EX as well on the opponent's bench. So just a very unusual sort of fairy deck, guys. We haven't seen any other Pokemon on the opponent's bench just yet. So I'm not really sure how this battle is going to end up. I'll definitely be using the Juniper, so let's go and use the Ultra Ball to get rid of that Electric and the Lysander as well. Let's go and grab onto a Thundurus EX. I think would be a pretty solid option. Let's go and bring it out, attach a Lightning Energy card to him, the Muscle Band as well. Let's go and use that Juniper. And okay, so it looks like we have an Electros, so that's kind of cool. but I wouldn't really be able to attack with it if I were to bring it out just yet. So let's go and use the Dynamotor for the time being to attach a Lightning Energy card to our benched Thundurus EX. And I mean our Electric should hopefully be able to survive. I'm gonna go and bring out the Rough Sea Stadium card. And you know what, let's actually evolve it into the Electros just to ensure that it actually does remain alive. And unfortunately with that, I have to go and end our turn, guys. Looks like our setup is coming a little bit slower than I'd like, but I think we should be able to overpower our opponent's Pokemon. Again, we haven't seen any Spritzies or Aromatees come out just yet. So, okay, Pokemon Center Lady, that's very, very unusual. I was thinking we're probably going to see a whole ton of Max Potions, things like that. So maybe I'm thinking about our opponent's deck in a completely off-road sort of way. I'm not really sure what they are running anymore as their main strategy. Just a very unusual deck, maybe just composed of Mewtwo EXs and Spritzy Aromatees to get that energy manipulation. Alright, so let's go and heal our Electros by a little bit, bring out a Tynamo. And let's see what I'd like to do. I mean, I could definitely use the Dowsing Machine to get a card from the discard pile. Before I do use the Juniper, for example. And is there any card that I would particularly like to be able to grab into? Let's see, guys. And I think I'm gonna grab onto a Muscle Band. Yeah, I think Muscle Band is the way to go. So let's go and get rid of the Hypnotoxic Laser and the VS Seeker. We should definitely be able to knock out our opponent's Pokemon during our next turn. So let's go and grab onto that Muscle Band, latch it onto our bench Thundurus EX, use that Juniper for some new cards, and also looks like we have another Tynamo. And you know what, we're going to go and attack with the Electros, so I'm going to go and attach a Lightning Energy card to him, use that Dynamotor to look for another Lightning Energy card, attach it to any of our bench Pokemon, again, doesn't really matter. Let's go and use that Energy Connect, move 2 Lightning Energy cards onto the Electros, and I'm gonna be making sure that each of our energy cards go into the discard pile just to lower the total damage output of our opponent's Mewtwo EX during their next turn. Alright, so let's go and use that Electric Cannon, hit for 130 damage, and then draw onto our very first 2 prize cards. Definitely don't think our opponent's Mewtwo EX would be able to knock out any of our Pokemon during this turn, unless of course he happens to Lysander out our Tynamo and attach another energy card. We are seeing the Starling Megaphone getting rid of each of our Muscle Bands, so that's a little bit unfortunate. That means that the Mewtwo EX is no longer within the one-hit knockout range. We should still have one more Muscle Band in our deck though, so hopefully we are able to eventually draw into that. And let's see what our opponent decides to do. Probably just going to hit us for a mere 40 damage, so not a whole lot. I don't think we're really going to need that, Okay, and it looks like the opponent is going to decide to lure out our Tynamo, so that's a little bit unfortunate. I think we're finally going to go and bring out the Thundurus EX to see a little bit of action, so let's go and bring it out as our active Pokemon. I'm going to go and use the Ultra Ball, get rid of the Mr. Mime and the Juniper as well. I think that's okay if we manage to get rid of it. I'm going to go and grab onto another Tynamo, guys. Let's go and bring it out onto the bench. Heal our benched Electros for a little bit of damage. Use that Electric special ability to look for a Lightning Energy card and attach it to one of our bench Pokemon. Again, I'm going to manipulate it and bring it onto the active Thundurus EX. And I'm just thinking whether I'd like to use the Juniper. We only have a total of 11 cards left in our deck, guys, so I think using the N would probably be a bit of a wiser choice. So let's go and use that, and hopefully we're able to draw onto a Lightning Energy card. Awesome. So we should be able to hit our opponent's Mewtwo EX for 150 damage, but again, we're lacking a little bit of damage. So you know what, I think I'm temporarily just going to stick with the Headlock attack. Yeah, so I think that is what I'm going to do. So let's go and use Headlock, really hope for the tails, and it looks like we're going to get a heads, hit for 60 damage. Such an unreliable attack. I mean, whenever you want the heads, you get the tails. Whenever you get the tails, you get the heads. But that's okay. We should be definitely able to knock out our opponent's Mewtwo EX during our next turn, and we should be able to go on to victory relatively soon. We're seeing a level ball, so Spritzy is finally coming out so late into the game, my goodness. So I'm not really sure how useful that Spritzy is going to be later on. I mean, it still needs to evolve into the Aromatees for it to really be feasible. And that Gardevoir EX, again, even if it evolves into the Mega Gardevoir EX, it's not really going to hit for a whole lot of damage unless the opponent manages to bring a whole ton of energy cards out at play. Alright, so let's go and use that the Rough Seas to heal our Thundurus EX for a little bit of HP. I'm gonna go and use the Electric's Dynamotor ability, look for a Lightning Energy card, attach it to one of our Pokemon. Again, doesn't really matter. Let's go and use that Energy Connect, move that Lightning Energy card onto our active Thundurus EX. And Not really sure if I'd like to use the Ultra Ball just yet. I don't think we need it, so let's just end off our turn by using the Voltage Rush attack, hitting our opponent for a massive 150 damage, and then drawing onto 2 of our prize cards. Definitely don't see our opponent being able to attack us for any damage at all during this turn, unless he happens to bring out another Mewtwo EX or something like that. So we are seeing the Fairy Garden. Luckily we have a Rough Seas in our hand, so we can easily get rid of our opponent's Fairy Garden and slowly heal our Thundurus EX all over again. Would love to have been able to draw onto another Muscle Band, guys, just to hit our opponent's Gardevoir EX for that magic 170 damage, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think we're going to have to take it a little bit slower. Opponent is going to use the Life Leap and hurt our Thundurus EX by a fair amount of damage, but luckily we have the Rough Seas, so we will be able to survive if we do decide to attack, which of course I will be doing. Let's go and use that Dynamotor to look for another Lightning Energy card and attach it to one of our benched Thundurus EXs. And via Seeker, I'm just seeing if we have any cards that I'd like to use. I don't think so. I think we're going to stick with what we have for now. Yeah, so let's go and simply use the Hypnotoxic Laser. Awesome, looks like we're going to get the heads, and then I'm going to go and use the Voltage Rush to hit our opponent's Gardevoir EX for 150 damage. Hopefully it remains asleep, and it is going to wake up. If the opponent does not have a max potion, we're going to be able to win, or if he's unable to retrieve that Gardevoir EX, looks like we're going to go on and take the win, guys. Again, because we do have the Rough Seas, so the opponent does not have the free retreat anymore. I think this is going to be our game. I mean, the opponent would still need to knock out another one of our Pokemon in case he does manage to get rid of the Thundurus EX. So things are not looking good for our opponent whatsoever. I also have the VS Seeker and the Lysander in the discard pile, so in case the opponent's Gardevoir EX does decide to retreat, I can certainly lure it out and knock it out during our next turn. So yeah, I think we are going to win, of course, unless our opponent manages to bring out a max potion. Alright, so we are seeing the Pokemon Center Lady. Unfortunately, not enough to help our opponent's Gardevoir EX survive our next attack. And of course, it can only hit us for 20 damage using the Life Leap, unless it has the Muscle Band, which would of course allow our opponent to knock out the Thundurus EX. Alright, we're seeing a Xerneas EX come onto the opponent's bench, and they rage quit, so I think we would have been able to win during our next turn anyways. So thank you guys very much for watching. If you guys did enjoy this video, please be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and yeah, so I will see you guys next time.